Hi everybody, this is the first video recap update of the lock-in series that I started on February 1st. It is February 16th. I meant to do this after the first 7 to 10 days, but honestly I was still trying to figure out, so I didn't really have much to talk about. But now, being 16 days in, being just over 2 weeks in, just wanted to share what it means, what I've experienced, what I've learned, and how I'm going to evolve it going forward. So starting off, the lock-in, as I've been calling it, if you don't know, if you haven't seen it on my Instagram, is sort of a one-man social experiment that I am doing for the rest of 2026, starting in February 1st. And it was born out of a moment that I had back in 2025. For those of you who don't know, 2025 was a pretty tumultuous year for me and my family. So we welcomed my second son, Cooper, on June 19th of 2025. But he spent just about a week, I think it was 5 or 6 days, in the NICU because he was not developing enough and was just having his lungs and his body was just not developing fast enough. So he needed some extra help. Or as we explained it to my 4-year-old son at the time, that Cooper just needed to cook a little bit longer. So that he was cooking in mama's belly. When he came out, sometimes you take the cookies out and you can tell they're not quite done. So you got to put them back in just for a little bit, just to make sure they're perfect. And that analogy seemed to work well for him to understand. So I'm kind of using it for everybody. But just the stress with that, and then not 3 months later, 4 months later, my wife has a stroke, and on September 31st or 29th, 30th, it was the Sunday, that Monday was the last day of September, that Sunday, she had a stroke. And about 5 or 6 days later, I was let go from my job that I had been working at for what would have been 10 years the next month. So it was a pretty high and pretty high and pretty low 2025. Just a lot going on, and God's grace was just shown significantly through the entire thing. But I got to the end of 2025, just going up, down, mountain, valley, all this craziness going on. And I looked back and I could just see the goodness of God and everything that we have gone through, and how He has brought us through, and how He provided, how He took care of us. How he didn't let us drown in our own sorrow, and just all sorts of things. But I also looked back and I could see all the moments where I missed the mark, not because of, not because I'm just human and, nobody's perfect, but I missed the mark because, I was too undisciplined. I was too mentally, emotionally, spiritually weak. I was just being flat out disobedient. I was being lazy. Just all these different excuses and moments where I realized if I would have just done what I knew that I should have done, then life would have turned out even greater, better, farther, higher, whatever you want to be than where it was. And that God had done so much despite me. And I have realized that for the majority of my life, every year has kind of been like that, where God has done so much despite me. Now, I asked myself, what would happen? How quickly would my life change? How much better could life get if instead of God having to do things despite me, if He was doing things with me? If I was fully actually surrendered, actually obedient, I actually did everything and said everything and acted every way that I knew I should. If I took accountability, if I lived a life full of discipline, if I just sought after purity, righteousness, and holiness, if I did exactly what I knew I should do, exactly when I knew that I should do it, what would happen? What would happen? And that thought process had carried over for about a month or two, and that's when I decided, 2026, there was never a better time for me to go, let's lock in. So what would happen if I spent the rest of the year doing exactly what I knew I should do, if I was disciplined, if I was mature, spiritually mature, physically mature, emotionally mature. If I was not perfect in execution, but what if I was perfect in effort? What if I was perfect in effort to do everything that the Holy Spirit told me to do and that I knew that I should do? Because, life happens and you can't always be perfect in execution because we're not perfect. We are human. But I can be perfect in effort. I can always give my best effort to whatever is required of me at that time. And I asked myself, what would happen? And I said, you know what? I'm going to do it. 2026, I'm going to lock in. I'm going to do it for an entire year because two things will happen. I'll either be able to show the world what happens when you actually surrender to God and decide you are going to do something outside of you that's bigger than yourself, that you're going to have faith. You are going to step out of your comfort zone. You are going to learn how to live off the goodness of God and not off the goodness of man, how to deny yourself, all these things. I'm either going to be able to show the world what happens when you actually decide to go all in for Christ, or I'm going to crash and burn, but at least I'll know. I said I'll fail, but at least I know at that point that I can accept that I'm not going to be all that I thought that God had planned for me if I tried my absolute hardest and missed the mark. If I just realized, okay, hey, maybe what I thought God wanted me to do, maybe it was just pride. Maybe it was just this, delusions of grandeur that I was going to do all these great things. And I can accept that. I can accept that if I give it all I got and don't hit the mark. I can accept that. And I was tired of living a lukewarm, mundane, mediocre, okay, just slightly above average, almost but not quite life. I was ready to do something that would make everybody else go, wow, I want to be like him, because I want to be like the men that I look up to. The pastors, the fathers, the friends that I have had in my life that I look up to, that I go, I want to be like him. I see what he does. I see how he lives. I see how he walks. I see how he talks. And I want to be like that. So what if I just decided to do it? What if I decided to stop talking about it, stop planning for it, and actually started executing it? So that's where this came from. Excuse me. That's where the lock-in came from. And I had a friend ask me, he said, dude, this is awesome. I love that idea. He's like, so what exactly does this mean? What are you going to do? And honestly, I told him, I said, honestly, man, I have no idea. I have no idea. And that's why it's so uncomfortable for me, because I'm a big control freak. I like to be able to know exactly what's going to happen, how it's going to look, how it's going to succeed. Like, where all the variables are figured out. So I know, okay, I'm going to do this now because it'll look good. I'll do good. I won't crash and burn. I won't look like an idiot. I won't look stupid. People aren't going to laugh at me. I'm not going to get rejected, all those sort of things. And I lived my life like that for a long time. But there's something freeing, I don't know. Nobody may watch this video. I may be talking to absolutely nobody right now. This may mean nothing. I may just be off my rocker, crazy, stupid, whatever it may be. But I'm going to try. I'm going to try. I'm going to take a step of faith. I'm tired of sitting here dreaming, and I want to start doing. I have dreams for so long. I've had such big dreams for so long that I just want my actions to level up as well. So I did come up with some parameters, just kind of like to start off with, to know, okay, just to kind of be like, okay, well, this is my starting line. And the biggest thing right now has been physical, mental, and spiritual discipline and maturity. And just kind of building that base, because, honestly, I can't grow and extend and level up, or however you want to say it, without first making sure my base is solid. Because what happens when you try to build a tower up and the foundation is not set, it crumbles. And I've seen too many men, too many ministers, too many pastors, too many leaders, that the tower grows up real quick and the foundation was not set, and then they tumble at the end. And by the grace of God, I've done my tumbling before I started building, and I don't want to ever tumble again. So it's very important to me to set that foundation. So what that's been is physically disciplining myself, working out. I've been hitting 2 workouts once a day, a run and a lift, at least 5 days a week, but at least one or the other, at least a 30 to 45 minute workout every day. More often than not, it's been 2. Though I do take 1 or 2 rest days. I still do something on those days, like a family walk or maybe even a light run, like a mile jog or something like that, but taking it easy on those days. And then a big thing with me is that's a physical and emotional is with my eating. I was wanting to get back into to good shapes that I've always carried a little extra because I've always been an emotional eater, and so is sticking to not a diet or anything like that, but like I call it a food budget, because it's the same thing with a money budget or anything, time budget. Said that in something where you have where the resource is finite, meaning that what you have to spend on that thing is finite. It's not just infinite. I could spend, I think, with the math, it's I'm gonna kind of have it right here. Is keeping myself in a calorie deficit right now to lose 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds a week, which means about a 700 to 800 calorie deficit a day, which means I can eat roughly 2,600 calories a day with the amount of physical activity that I do on average, and be in that 700 to 800 calorie deficit range. And so far, I have hit it out of 16 days. I have hit it 14, and I have not gone over the calorie budget, and meaning I have not consumed more than I've burned all 16 days. So I'm doing incredibly great there, and I'm learning a lot about my relationship with food and how what it means and how to, and it's in turn helping me learn how to handle money better, how to handle time better, because you realize like, okay, I do know that like at least once or twice a week I am going to want this specific snack. It's not nutritionally beneficial. It's like there's nothing in it that's really going to like help me, but I like it. To have a little bit of a snack of this, whatever it is, chips or whatever. But I have to hit these marks first. It's like, okay, so that means like that yesterday, I said it was like 9:00. We're sitting down to watch a movie, and I realized I still had like 1,200 calories left for the day. And I was, I had gotten pretty dang close to my protein goals and stuff like that. So I was like, if you all hear the door, it's my dog, so don't worry about it. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go to 7-Eleven. We have 7-Eleven right down the street. I was like, I'm gonna go get some chips while we watch this movie, because I can eat these chips, not have to feel guilty or bad about myself because you ate bad food. But it's like I had the calories to spend. It's like I had the extra money to buy the shoes. I like whatever it is like, okay, this fits in my budget. I can eat these and I don't have to deal with any guilt or shame because I've planned ahead. I focused on getting my protein and my nutrition goals first. So then I had all this left over and I had an abundance. And out of that abundance, I was able to enjoy a little treat. Now, my stomach still hurt after those, and I realized, maybe it's just not because, and this is another thing, sometimes you get to learn, okay, I don't need to eat this, not because it makes me feel bad or it's bad food or, it's like, it just actually doesn't make me feel good. And I've learned that there's ways to feel good, actual ways to feel good, it physically feel good, and not just mental chemical brain spikes that come crashing down later. But yeah. So and then spiritually, and with obviously reading my Bible every day, and then I've been reading this, The Problem of Pain by C.S. Lewis, which the back, Why We Must Suffer, which if you watched my post today on Instagram, it's just kind of like talk a lot about suffering and the beauty of suffering, the necessity of suffering, but. So that's kind of just like the main everyday, daily, non-negotiable disciplines as I kind of walk through it. And the biggest thing is just being honest and being obedient to the Holy Spirit in whatever capacity that means every single day. And it starts with the little things, which leads me to my first story that I have to tell. And it was like a week or two ago, not 2 weeks, obviously, but I think it was like actually 5 or 6 days ago. Me and Brooke, my wife, were going to the gym. We had dropped off the boys at her grandma's house to watch. She lives like a mile from the gym. So Brooke's like, I'll just run there. I was like, cool. So I was driving there. And as I was driving in the neighborhood, I was at the intersection right go out, and this basketball goes over the back fence of one of the houses. And so I kind of like slow down just to make sure there's not be a kid sprint across the street, not paying attention. No kid came, and I realized, they have a basketball hoop in their backyard, and it just, went over the fence, missed a shot, whatever it may be. And in my head, I was like, you know what, I should stop the car, I should get out, and I should throw it over. And I was like, I should do that. And then I was like, there may be cars, blah, 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 whatever. And so I just went. And it bothered me so much, High Trinity. It bothered me so much for the entire work, for the next hour and a half. It bothered me. It sat on my mind and in my heart. I'm like, I should have done it. I said, because it's like nothing crazy. It's like not that I get would have been worlds. I said, but you never know. I said, the Holy Spirit convicted me. You never know. He said, what if you threw that basketball over, or that kid came out and you handed it to him, and somehow you got to have a moment to share the gospel, or even more likely is like, what if you gave throw the basketball over, like they saw you said hi, whatever it was, but then later they see you at church, or later they see you somewhere, like, you're that guy, that blah blah blah, and it's like, and you have that connection, that servant connection of what Christ came to do, which was to serve others. I said even in the little things, and it was crazy, because then later we're leaving the gym, we go pick up the boys, and we're driving back, and we drive through the Target parking lot, because where the neighborhood is, you cut through the Target parking lot to get to the highway. And as we're coming up to an intersection, this Target cart comes screaming down the intersection. I was like, did you see that? Bruce said, yeah. I said, and like, snap, I knew. I was like, and it stopped in the middle of the road. I was like, So I whipped over quick. What are you doing? I said, hold on, I'm gonna get that car. So I hop out, the cart's in the middle of the road. People are just avoiding it. So I grab it real quick, and I go run it back, and I put it in the little cart corral and stuff like that. And I run back in and stuff like that. And Brooke's not thinking anything of it. And I just kind of said, and I literally just said, thank you, Holy Spirit. And she was like, what are you talking about? I said, this is going to sound kind of crazy, but on the way there, I told her the story about the basketball, stuff like that. And I said, I felt so convicted that I didn't do it. That little thing, that little bit of obedience, that little bit of kindness of humanity that I could have just shown. It wasn't anything crazy. Was that even in that little bitty obedience, like you expect, it's like, how do you expect to be obedient when I ask you to do something big if you can't be obedient with this little trivial thing that like everybody would, is not a big deal. And it's like, that car's not a big deal, but I knew nobody else would do it. But the Holy Spirit convicted me and said, yes, but I brought you here to fix the things that nobody else wants to fix. They don't want to fix other people's messes. They don't want to fix other people's mistakes. I brought you here to help me do that. And so I put the card up. I was like, because you never know what, he said, you never know who's in that parking lot, who's driving by. It could have been a church member that saw it and was inspired. It could have been somebody who then sees me at church, saw it inspired. It could have been someone I could have ran in business-wise down the road. And they're like, you know what, I saw you do this, and that had an impact on me for that little moment. It's like, you never know. You never know. And I realized, okay, that's what this is. That's what the lock-in is locking into those moments. And those little moments, because it's the little moments that make a man. It's the little everyday moments. Everybody focuses on the big moments. Movies focus on the big moments. Books focus on the big moments. News focuses on the big moments. Social media focuses on the big moments. But it's the little moments that you think nobody sees that are going to create the life and build the man that you want to be. And so that's what the lock-in is. And that's the first of 100, of 1,000, of 1,000,000 moments over the lifetime that is going to build me into the man that I am trying to become, the man that God has created me to be. But that's all I got today. I'll have a little bit better format with later videos, stuff like that. But I'm gonna try to do one every 7 to 10 days at least, so I can at least give a recap of what's going on, what I'm learning, stuff like that. If you go follow me on Instagram though, I share a lot of stuff daily. If not daily, at least every other day of just what's going on, just to keep myself accountable and show the consistency. And I'm hoping this inspires somebody to decide that they're tired of being mediocre. And by mediocre, I don't mean like everybody's gonna go be a gold medalist or start $1 billion company. It's just like, but mediocre to what you know that you can do. Like that, you're half-assing it. Like, let's be honest. Like, you're not giving it your all. And I'm tired of living that way. And I hope this inspires you to be tired of living that way. Because until you hate where you are, until you are sick and tired of being where you are, of living the way you do, of feeling the way you do, you will never make the change. There's a quote that says, if the pain of change is not less than the pain of staying the same, then nothing will ever change. It said the pain of change must be less than the pain of staying the same. It must be less painful to make the change than it is for you to stay the same. And until you get to that place, you'll drink yourself, eat yourself, smoke yourself, watch porn to oblivion, and you'll just numb yourself and never reach the potential that God has for you. Which that may sound harsh, but sometimes you gotta wake up and smell the crap. They say smell the roses, but sometimes you gotta smell the crap to realize, I gotta do something. I gotta clean this up. I am not where I should be. And this is not to like shame you, but it's to face the reality of where you're at. Accept responsibility for where you're at, but see the truth and the potential of what God has for you. Because this isn't say you are crap, you're always gonna be crap. It said, no. You are living contrary to what God has prepared for you. And it's time for you to lock in, put your foot down, get to work, put your nose to the grindstone, stop making excuses, stop whining about it, stop focusing on things you can't control, and put the work in. Suffer well, grow, challenge yourself, and become the man that God has created you to be. That's all I got for today. Love you guys. Thanks for joining in for this week's episode of The Lock In. Yeah.